Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the episode of today. So in this episode, I'm going to be doing a little bit of like a psychology fact, especially going off that whole bias episode that I did, which was super successful. You guys loved it like a few episodes ago. I'm going to be giving you a little pet hate. I used to do that all the time, but I thought I'd resurrect it. Funny how we're talking about resurrection, and you'll see the link in the language soon. But thought I'd resurrect my pet hates due to a DM that I received, and it was quite comical. And then we're going to be talking about how to let go of something, okay? In particular, something that deep down you know you should be letting go of, something that doesn't serve you anymore, that is hurting you, that you might still care about or love, but you know it's not right. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to explain to you why it's so hard to let go of things that we don't like, that doesn't serve us anymore, even when logically you can look at it and be like, this is not the right thing for me, but why is it so hard to do that? I'm not going to come from a judgmental perspective, but I'm going to give you insight into why it is so hard. And by the end of this episode, at the very least, I hope that I've framed the situation in a way that you're able to look at it with a bit more insight and a bit more understanding, and at the very best, that you're able to actually let go of that thing, okay? So that's the fucking episode of today. Let's begin. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was this like kind of pet hate. I don't know if it's like something that's, okay, we're talking about religion here. So I just want to preface this by saying that I have, and I even celebrate people who follow the religion that they want to follow. You do you. You fucking have your own religion. I don't care what religion it is, right? You can have your own podcast about your own religion. You can have your own channel about it. You go hard. What I don't like is when people will go out of their way to try and change someone else's mind or indoctrinate them or whatever. So for example, everything that I talk about is on my platform. People come to me to listen to what I have to say. If you don't want to listen to what I have to say, I'm not in your face. I'm not in your grill. If you stumble across me on social media, you can just block or unfollow or whatever, okay? And I'm certainly not sliding into people's DMs telling them what they should or shouldn't believe or trying to instill fear in them or whatever, okay? So that's what I'm prefacing it with. If you're doing your own thing on your own channel, in your own community, in your own whatever, go hard. Love that so much, and not only love it, but I respect it, okay? But the other day I received a DM, and it's funny because this is weirdly not the first time I have received a DM like this. Like, this is an almost, I wouldn't say word for word, but very similar wording, okay? So I don't know what that's all about. But someone sent me a DM, and I wrote it down, and it said, how are you so sure that you are not going to hell? I can help you make sure that you get into heaven if you are willing. Firstly, I never stated that I wasn't so sure that I wasn't going to hell. Never said that. Let's presume that I believe in heaven and hell. Let's just presume, because that's the first presumption. But never said that. Never said I wasn't so sure. And secondly, based on all these people that are going to heaven, like this enlightened individual that sent me the DM, I'm not quite sure if heaven is a place that I want to be at, right? Like, I don't really know if that would be my vibe if I was religious and if I did believe in heaven and hell. Not quite sure that heaven would be my kind of energy. I just feel like if heaven was such a good place to be, why are there so many people desperately trying to get other people to get into heaven? Like, it's giving desperate, you know what I mean? Like, just if it's that good, shouldn't we want, it's like an exclusive club, shouldn't you want to go there? Like, do I need to be convinced that I should go there? Lastly, if you really come down to it, when we're talking about heaven and hell, isn't being gay a sin? Which therefore would mean that Mardi Gras would be hosted in hell, which therefore would mean that I think I'd rather be there. So even though I'm not quite sure that I'm not going to hell, I can safely say that probably wouldn't be the worst outcome for someone like me if I did believe it in the first place. Anyway, that's my pet hate. People sliding into my DMs and threatening me with the with hell. Like, don't fucking tempt me with a good time, all right? Do not tempt me with a good time. Anyway, the psychology thing that I was going to talk about is the swimmer's body illusion. And I thought that I would talk about this because I was talking about biases a few episodes ago. So this is just kind of continuing on from that. And it's this illusion that we all have, and it's called the swimmer's body illusion, but it also translates into other areas in our life. And I think it's important to just be aware of this kind of bias or illusion or whatever you want to like label it as. So basically, the swimmer's body illusion is a form of bias where people will attribute a trait or a characteristic to a certain activity and not the other way around. So basically, it's when we assume that certain physical like attributes of a group or a profession are a result of the training and effort, rather than seeing that the people who naturally possess these traits are more likely to be successful in these areas to begin with. So for example, when you're starting out as like swimming, people that are going to excel at swimming are the ones that genetically have a body type that would be predisposed to have like long, tall, lean, but still muscular, but not stocky muscles, but like long, lean, muscular bodies are likely going to excel in the pool more so than other body types. So therefore, those people do well and are more likely to stick it out and are more likely to become professional swimmers, and actually are the ones that are competitive on like a global stage as a swimmer. It's not that swimming gives you a tall, long, lean, muscular body in and of itself if you're not genetically predisposed to have that kind of body. Okay, so that's basically the swimmer's illusion, and that goes for like obviously any sport. And you see it in other physical things like as well. Like you can apply this to all sorts of things. Like a lot of people who have like really great asses might be like, oh, I'm going to release like glute guides, or I'm going to be a personal trainer to grow your glutes because they've got a really good ass. And it's not that they don't work for it, but they might think, well, I've worked really hard for it and this is the great ass that I have, without attributing a lot of that great muscle mass to genetics as well. And you see that with all kinds of sports and like with dancing and even like Pilates instructors as well. You see a lot of that as well. People that have that quote unquote, and I don't like saying this, but the Pilates body will lean into becoming a Pilates instructor. And then a lot of people see that a lot of Pilates instructors look a certain way and think that if they did Pilates, their body would look exactly like that, which is not the case in a lot of cases, okay? But it also applies in other things as well. So, for example, schools and universities. We think that if you graduate from a top tier school, or especially a top tier university, that this university is so good at producing really, really smart people. But these universities have a crazy vetting process before you can even get in. So they're already selecting the smart cunts to get into that university. So they've already done a lot of the work prior to even getting there. And then the university just serves as like a really good title, a really good name. They offer, yes, good education, but is it really that superior to the other, institutions? And then when this person graduates, just because of the title and the name, you think that you attribute it to the university as to why they're so smart, instead of thinking this person already was smart due to many other factors in their life that made them that way. Okay? The same thing goes for a lot of like private schools. You think that private schools offer the best education because people that graduate from private schools seem to have relatively successful jobs, instead of looking at it as maybe because people could afford to send them to private schools, they also have a lot of other things on offer to them in their life that someone whose family isn't as wealthy, maybe they don't have the means. So these people have more means to get to where they want to go. They have more opportunity that money can provide them. Also, due to the schools that they're at, they're probably able to network a whole lot better and get into jobs and get into job interviews a whole lot easier than someone that wasn't at that school. So it's not to say that this school makes you like a better business person or smarter. It's just that everything that led to you even getting into the school in the first place is probably the reason why you're the way that you are. So that's something to just really be aware of. And it's important to be aware of it because it can lead to false conclusions about like success and self-improvement and, where we think we're going to go by doing a certain thing. I think it helps you keep a broader perspective and a broader opinion on a lot of things if we're aware of this kind of illusion and not thinking that you need to pursue certain things to get a particular outcome, that there are many other things that could attribute to that outcome or that level of success. All right? So good times. That is the swimmer's illusion. Now, let's talk about the swimmer's body illusion, whatever it's called. Now let's talk about the actual content of today's episode, which is basically this being your sign to let that thing go. So I want to talk about all sorts of things in this episode, but I'm going to cover things like what happens when we don't let go of something that we know we should be letting go of. This is job, relationship, where we're living. This could apply to friendships, anything. It could apply to any part of your life. I'm going to talk about why we feel so scared and why we hesitate so much to let go, even when we are in a position where like I'm not fucking happy. This is not where I want my life to be. Why it is so hard to let go of that. And I'm also going to be breaking down a whole bunch of different ways or give you tools that you can look at your situation to encourage change and to encourage action for you to kind of direct your life in a different direction, okay? And let that thing go. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is one of the major issues that we have, and it's kind of like it keeps us in this catch-22 situation or whatever you want to call it, is that we think this situation might be bad, but unless I have something lined up, like another job, another group of friends, a better relationship, a sure thing that I can swap this out for, then there's no point in me changing, because I also don't want to have nothing. I don't want to be single. I don't want to have no friends. I don't want to be jobless. I don't want to, whatever it is in the situation, I don't want to have no, dream or no, for example, like with me, I feel like I held on to my dream of wanting to be an actor for a lot longer than it served me. It wasn't making me happy for so long, but I didn't feel like I had a passion. So even something that I wasn't even succeeding at, I was struggling to let go of, because I thought, well, if I don't hold on to this as the one thing that I'm striving for, even though A, I wasn't doing well at, and B, it wasn't even making me happy, fine if it made me happy, because fucking go for gold. But neither of the things were happening. But I was feeling like unless I have something else, I can't let go of this, because then I'm going to feel like it's kind of that sunk cost fallacy. I'm going to feel like it's all been a waste. Okay. And we feel that about a lot of things. But the problem is that when we don't let go of that thing first, we stay stuck, because many things happen. Number one, you're preoccupied by that thing that you're doing or by the relationship that you're in. It's actually cock blocking you from other encounters, other opportunities, all sorts of things, okay? The second thing is that it keeps us attached to this older version of ourselves where we did think this was a good idea. So we're in this constant push-pull of like, I kind of want to be somewhere else. However, I'm still in this position, so I'm still fixated on this. I'm still the old me. I haven't really shed the dead skin. I haven't shed that skin and really forced myself into a new position. Another thing is that even if it's not serving us, we're technically comfortable. We could be like, I could change now, or I could change this in a month. I could change this in a year. And we understand how uncomfortable change can be. We all acknowledge how difficult it can be to shake something off and really let go of something, and to be thrown in the deep end and to really have to swim to the surface with a new job, new career, moving new cities, finding new friends, getting rid of your old fuckwit friends who treat you like shit, the relationship, all of that. We know how hard it is. And when we're currently in something that's good enough, we think, yeah, I know I want to change, but I'll just stay here for now because I don't think I'm ready. Okay? So because of that, it's really, really hard to excel in other areas because we feel stuck. If you have something ripped out from underneath you, if your job got taken away from you, if it wasn't in your control, watch how you do swim to the surface. You're not going to sit there and be unemployed for the rest of your life. Watch how you become resilient and proactive, and you go and get another job. Or if you got kicked out of your home, you find another home. You find new friends. You eventually get over that partner, and you find, a relationship that you're happy with. So we have a lot of evidence, which we choose to ignore in our life, that has already supported this idea that when we are in the deep end, when we do let go of that thing, whether it's intentional or unintentional, when someone's let go of us or when we let go of that thing, we actually can rise to the surface, and a lot easier, well, maybe not easier, but a lot more efficiently than we give ourselves credit for, okay? But when we're in this, and I say comfortable in quotation marks because it's not comfortable, we're suffering, we put off changing for so long because we don't think that we'll be able to do it effectively. We don't think that we'll be able to move ahead and have that thing. And now the reason we're so scared of this is because we seek security in the big things in life. All of us do. And that's perfectly normal to want some level of security in the big things in life. But what I want you to realize, and this is so important and I need it to be drilled into you, is that it is perfectly normal and acceptable and a human need to want to seek a certain level of security. But I don't want you to think that your whole life has to be set up to find security in the external things, okay? Your real sense of security needs to come from both things, from your connections with other people, but also from yourself, and knowing that you are capable of, like, you're moldable, you're plastic, you are resilient, you can be, proactive and also reactive, So if we are constantly seeking security in the external things around us, and that being the only form of security, then it's going to be terrifying to leave this relationship when there's no other relationship lined up. And I've said it 1,000 times, most people would rather be unhappy than be alone. And I'm not just talking about romantically, this comes in friendships as well. You've heard it, the amount of poor beans that write in, and it breaks my heart, talking about these really unhealthy friendship groups, but they're like, there's no one else I can be friends with. And so they'll put up with bullshit. They'll put up with the dregs of society because they don't have an alternative friend to turn to, and they don't want to be by themselves. They don't want to be alone. But I can guarantee you, it's like the thing that's stopping us from actually letting go and taking that leap is the thing that will cause all your success. And that is completely drawing a line in the sand and letting go of that thing. It's very difficult for you to make really healthy, great new friends while you are entertaining people that treat you like shit. And the reason it's so difficult is because your belief in yourself has been broken. Your self-esteem is probably not at its best. Your self-confidence is probably not at its best. Your ability to trust yourself and to back yourself and to defend yourself is probably not at its best. When you go against what you know is right for you, job, friends, relationship, city that you live in, you are saying to yourself, I'm ignoring what I know is really right for me. My confidence is now getting a bit shaky. I can't really trust what I think is right or wrong because I'm going against what I think. I'm just going to let all these other external factors dictate it, and I'm not going to do this thing. Okay? Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, because it's not easy. It's fucking hard, and it's very hard for many reasons. Number one, because I'm literally saying, let go of that fucking thing and start from scratch. That's very hard to do. Doable, more doable than you realize. But of course it's hard to do because you're going from surviving where you're at now. You can survive, you might not like it, but you're surviving, to thinking, now I've got to shake things up and start from scratch. And I could do it now, or I could do it in a week's time, or I could do it in a month's time. And all of us are likely going to, I'm not going to say all, but many of us are likely going to choose in a month's time. I don't want to have to think about it right now. It's too hard a decision. The other reason why it's so hard for us is because, like I said, your relationship with yourself is not as good as you think it is if you're stuck in a situation and you can't break out and you can't let that thing go. Okay? And the reason for that is that you are not honoring yourself. And when you don't honor yourself and what you know is right, that stuff gets harder and harder and harder. I can think of many examples in my life, several examples in my life where I was in that position and unhappy. And because I was unhappy, it made it so much harder for me to snap out of it, break away from that thing and change up my life. Okay. And I almost needed a push every time, at least initially, for me to realize, wow, I actually am equipped to do this on my own. So the push came in the form of, a breakup, or in the form of, getting rejected from a job or not getting a job that I thought I'd get. And it was all these external things that were happening that would make me make the change and do it. But I remember in the times that I was really unhappy and wanted change, I didn't have the self-confidence and I didn't have the ability to be like, this is not good enough and I want more. So the cooked thing is, and it's so fucking cooked, it's like being in a fucking slow cooker, that's how cooked it is that staying in this position makes it harder and harder and harder. So when you say, I'll give it 6 months to decide, I'll give it another month, you are making it harder for yourself, especially if there's no real reason for that time frame. So for example, when you say to yourself, I'm going to give this relationship another 6 months to decide, or I'm going to give this job another 6 months to decide. That is not a good enough way to look at it. You have to change it. I'm all for giving time frames, but you've got to do it better. Firstly, you need to have something measurable. What can I measure? In other words, what needs to change in the next 6 months for me to stay, or what has to happen in the next 6 months that will make me leave? or what lack of action or what lack of something happening will make me leave. And it needs to be measurable, and you've got to fucking honor that measure. Okay? So for example, if you're in a relationship and you're just not that happy and you say, oh, things don't get better in 6 months' time, then I'm going to leave. Or if you're in a situation where you feel extremely underappreciated in your job and you say, if I don't feel better about this job in 6 months' time, then I'm going to leave. That's very arbitrary, okay? So let's take the job example. Let's say you know you are up for a promotion, or you know that you should be given more responsibilities, and you've spoken about it, you've flagged it with them, you've communicated, and you are just unhappy and you're not being appreciated. Then you can say to yourself, and ideally to your boss as well, if things don't change in the next 6 months, I'm going to look at other options. But to yourself, you're going to say, if I don't get that fucking promotion in the next 6 months' time, I'm out. They know that I want it. I've been going for it. I deserve it. I work whatever. I'm fucking done. And if this doesn't change, I'm out. Or if this boss stays as my boss and they keep bullying me the same way that they're bullying me, I will have to leave. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, maybe my boss will go, maybe this, maybe that. You've got to have a time limit for that, of what you're willing to put up with. If it's a relationship and you're not that happy, a lot of people say, I'm one day I'll snap. One day I'm just going to walk away. One day I'm reaching my limit. Your limit is a lot higher than you give yourself credit for, which is not a good thing when it comes to putting up with bullshit. You can put up with a lot of fucking bullshit. So to say, I'm going to reach my limit, you're going to be feeling like the shittest cunt on this planet. You're going to be disrespected. You're going to be in a really bad relationship and probably still not have reached your limit. Because the problem with that is that your idea of what your limit is and what you're deserving of drops and drops and drops and drops and drops the worse you feel about yourself and the worse your life circumstances are. Okay? So for example, what my limit is now, the threshold now is a lot stricter than what it was when I was in an abusive relationship, if that makes sense. Because when I was in an abusive relationship, my self-esteem, my confidence was literally shot to pieces. So what I was willing to put up with, what my limit was pretty infinite. Even though I would say, but if this happened, I would leave. If this happened, but I stayed. Whereas now, my confidence, my ability to see my resilience, my ability to all these things, I've got a standard for what my relationship has to look like. And if it crosses below a certain threshold, and that threshold is pretty fucking high, I'm out of here. I know exactly what those things are. I don't need to go into detail on this episode, but I've got my exact list of things that I would not put up with, and I would walk away. And they're not like astronomically fucked up things, okay? So the longer you stay in these situations, the more you're making it harder to come up with like what would actually change in the 6 months' time. So I don't like it when you say to yourself, oh, I'll give it a month, I'll give it 6 months. If you're going to do that, you've got to be really, really strict with what will happen or what won't happen that will cause me to stay or cause me to leave. If you don't have an answer to that, then you need to fucking walk away right now, because you're already unhappy. And if there's no actual change in the future, so for example, if you're in a marriage and nothing is changing, nothing is changing, their behavior is not changing, you say, I'm going to give it another 6 months. What are you actually waiting for? And what would need to happen at that 6 months for you to leave that's different to now? What if it just coasted the same way it was? Why are you still staying? It's because you're scared to stay, which is fair, but is that a good enough reason? That's what you got to ask yourself. However, if you're in a marriage and shit has hit the fan and whatever, and then you both decide, let's go to therapy. Your partner's like, I want to change. I want help with changing. Let's go to therapy. Let's do it together. Then yes, you can say, I want to give it 6 months because something's changed. You've got something measurable. And you say, if in 6 months I feel the same as now, then I can still walk away. But at least I know I've given it a shot, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. What is different that's causing you to wait more time to let that thing go? What is it in this career that you're striving for that you want different, okay? And like I said, this episode is not for things that are actually serving you. Like if you're in a career where you're like, for example, when I was doing acting, wasn't happening for me. But if I loved it, and if I'm like, fuck, I don't care if I get roles. I just love auditioning. I love doing this. I love it. Then this episode's not for me because it's not grinding me down, and it's not like it, it doesn't serve me. It doesn't make me happy. I'm talking about the things here that you are holding on to, but no longer serve you. That's what we're talking about in this episode. Okay. So let's break it down into a few steps. I've kind of already gone into some of those steps, but let's break it down. So the first step is, of course, Very basic. Identify what it is that you want to let go of, okay? It might be one thing, it might be a few things, it might be every aspect of your life. I don't care. Write it down. Get clear and actually write it down, because I think it's very symbolic to write something down. Don't type it, ideally on paper. It's there in front of you. You've taken it out of your head, you've put it on paper. It feels a little bit more real, okay? Identify what that thing is. And if you're like, oh, but I'm not sure, then say, I'm going to write down the things that I'm wondering if I should be letting go of or not. So if you're in an does this serve me, does it not, write it down, okay? The next thing is I want you to identify the fears that you have as to why you haven't let go of it yet, or why you feel that you won't be able to let go of that thing. Like, what are these fears? What would your reality look like in the immediate future after letting go of that thing? And then what could your reality look like in the more mid to long-term future if you let go of that thing? You can think of worst case scenario, you can think of best case scenario, you can think of middle ground scenario, but start getting really clear on what your fears are. And I also want you to be really, really realistic with acknowledging that a lot of the things that you're scared of are just short-term things, but we will put off experiencing this short-term discomfort, but then trade that in for staying in something that's going to cause us long-term pain or discomfort, okay? So for example, when you let go of something, it's almost always going to be hard. It's almost always going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be, you're more alone. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to be vulnerable. You might come across other failures while trying to get to where you want to go. There's all these things that are going to happen. It's going to be scary. If you're moving places, that represents so much that has to change if you're moving a city or whatever. So that fear of that difficulty is what puts us off. So I want you to really identify what is short term, that regardless, it would only ever be short term. Regardless if things went well for me or things didn't go as well as I would have hoped, would only be short term. Like moving, whether you love your new job or not, that discomfort is relatively short term, okay? And the beauty of it is, even if you got into another job and you're like, wow, I really don't love this job, you didn't love your old one anyway, so really it's not actually worst case scenario. You can just keep trying now. You're in a position where you found out you're not going to die. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. Now I'm like, okay, cool, this has taught me that I can do it. Now it's easier for me to do it. And also you're going to find that with most things in life. When you do something once, you realize you teach yourself about yourself and you're like, I was able to do it. Like the first heartbreak I had, no other heartbreak will ever come close to it. Not because I won't be sadder, but because I won't be so lost and being like, I have no idea how I'll be able to recover. Like for example, with my relationship, if Tyrone and I broke up, knock on wood, love him so much. Let's hope that never happens. But if we did, I would at the very least know that I could pull myself back together. Whereas the first heartbreak I ever had, I actually had this idea that I'd be fucked for the rest of my life. I was that devastated in a hole. Here, I would be absolutely devastated and heartbroken, but I would know, I'd have a deep knowing that I'm capable of pulling myself together because I've done it several times before. And I've come out the other side perfectly fine and flourishing and discovered a new life that I didn't even know existed for me. Okay? So that will happen with everything that you let go of, whether it happens to you or whether you do it. The more it happens, the more resilient you discover that you actually are. Okay? So anyway, that was a tangent, but we are identifying the fears as to why it is that you haven't done it or why you think that you can't do it. And then realizing what's going to be short term. So like if something's so short term, should you really be avoiding it? Now, step 3, and this is really interesting, is what does the fear of losing something manifest as? So the fear of losing, the relationship, your job, your whatever, it manifests as being less spontaneous, less risky, jealous. You focus on losses and on not losing rather than on gaining something. You're more reactive instead of proactive, because one thing that's really common is that we will be so scared of losing something even when we don't think that thing is good for us. And it almost makes it scarier to lose it, even when we know it's not good for us, because of what I spoke about, how it like impacts your confidence and your self-esteem and what you think you're capable of attaining or achieving if that thing was gone. So back to me, lol, about one of my, like when I was in a really emotionally abusive relationship, I knew that I wasn't happy, but I also thought that it was the best relationship I could get, right? I also put this person on a pedestal, even though I was anxious all the time and we fought all the time. And I was so scared to lose the relationship, that for the first time ever, I started feeling like jealous. I started feeling insecure. I started playing it small and trying to pander to everything that my partner wanted because I didn't want it to break up. I didn't want to lose the relationship, even though I knew it was so unhealthy for me. I was aware of it, and I know that I was aware of it because I never told anyone what was really going on in the relationship because I didn't want people to judge me. I knew it was unhealthy. I knew it was wrong, right? And it actually took him ending things for me to actually snap out of it and, realize what was going on. Now, in the healthiest relationship ever, I'm never in a position of thinking, I'm going to lose this, I need to protect it, I need to hold on so tight, because I have a different perspective. I don't think about fearing losing because I'm so much happier with my situation and myself and my confidence and what I have to offer. And I look at my partner and I as on the same page. I don't look at it's like, oh my God, I'm this little pleb that you've chosen to be with, and I'm lucky that you've chosen to be with me. Instead, I look at it as I'm grateful for what we've got and what we've built together. And I'm never jealous. I'm never like holding on to something so tight. I'm never scared to say what I feel. I'm never scared to express how I feel about a situation or express if I'm upset or frustrated or whatever. I never think that me being who I am and doing what I need to do to make something work for me, I never think I'm not going to do that because I'm scared to lose you. There's no fear of loss because it's either right for me and we work on it together, or it's not, and it's either going to break up or dissolve because they leave me or because I can't do it anymore. Okay? So ironically, the healthier the relationship is, the less fear I have of losing it, if that makes any sense at all. And that will work with most things in your life. The more you are confident and comfortable and thriving within yourself, the less fear you're going to have of losing things, because you're going to realize that you don't actually have full control over whether something stays or whether something goes in your life. And if something isn't right and you're still holding on to it, that comes down to a fear of losing that thing. Okay? And you need to really look into that, and you need to really address, why am I so scared of losing this thing when I know it's not even right for me? Is it because my self-esteem has been shot to pieces? Is it because I've put this thing or this person or this group of friends on a fucking pedestal? Okay? The amount of people that put toxic friends and people on a pedestal is scary. And the moment you can pull them down off the pedestal and start trying to make yourself feel a bit better about yourself and about your relationship with yourself and better about your decisions, you're not going to be so scared to lose it because you realize it's just not for you, okay? Now, step 4 is I want you to start equipping yourself with the right counter thoughts now, okay? And what I mean by that is we are primed to avoid loss. That's why when you could be in a relationship that you're like, this is shit, we fight all the time, or it's average, or it's not what it used to be, I'm bored. And so it's more negative than positive. Then that relationship breaks down, and then no new partner rolls around quick enough. And then you start thinking, fuck, did I fuck it up? Should I have stayed, or should I have fought harder when they left me, or should I have not left them? And you start looking at it through rose-colored lenses and start thinking, oh my God, I should have stayed. But that's because we're primed to avoid loss. We start to look at the past through oh my God, it was so much better, it was so good. When in reality, at the end of that relationship, you actually weren't that happy. For a lot of people, not everyone, but for a subset of the population, you weren't actually that happy. Or at the end of that job, you hated it. You loved it the first year, but you actually hated it. It's only now that you've left that you turn around and cherry pick what was good. So because your fear-based side of things wants you to go back to it so you're not in quote unquote danger, or you're not exposed, or you're not vulnerable, okay? So be aware that that's where your mind is likely going to go when you first leave that thing that you've let go of, okay? Job, whatever, city, whatever. There's going to be that initial, in the difficult phase that we've identified earlier, there's going to be this initial time where our thoughts are going to try and convince us that we did the wrong thing and we need to go back to what's secure and what's safe, even though we knew it was not. Okay? So start to come up with counter thoughts to these damaging thought processes that you know are going to happen. Okay. So, for example, say, I know that if I leave this relationship, I'm going to remind myself of the first 5 months where it was really fucking good, where they gave me everything, all the attention, all the love, where there was zest, where there was passion, where there was all this shit. I'm going to be reminding myself that constantly. And then I'm going to be like knocking on my ex's door again, hoping that they'll take me back. Or like telling them to come over so I can bang them so that way we have that connection again, right? Or the same goes for friends, or the same goes, maybe I should like go back to that job, or why did I quit that job? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now that you've identified what your thoughts might turn into in your initial stages of having left that thing, what are thoughts that you can counter it with? So if you're looking at the relationship side of things, say, yes, true, the 5 months were actually really good initially, but when I left the relationship, none of that still existed. So whether I stayed in the relationship or whether I left, the good times were done and dusted. They were no longer, love bombing me, and I was no longer under the illusion that things were good. Or you could say, like if the person wasn't a psycho fucking path, you could say to yourself, yes, these things were all great, but by the end of the relationship, we had outgrown each other. And had I stayed in the relationship, we probably would have continued to outgrow each other further and further. Those good times that I'm focusing on were ones that we outgrew. We weren't each other's match anymore. We started frustrating each other. We started being annoyed at this. So think of counter thoughts. Same with your job. I remember sitting at my desk feeling I'm so unfulfilled. Is this what the rest of my life is going to look like? So remind yourself of why you wanted to leave in the first place. They're going to be the counter arguments to when your brain or your mind or your fears try and convince you that you made a bad idea. Because we're pretty good at being aversive or preventing loss. And our brains will do a lot to convince us not to lose something, okay? Because that's the protective, fearful side of ourselves. Now, the next thing that I want you to do, step 5, is ask yourself, am I setting myself right now for an even bigger fall? Okay? Sometimes we work so hard to protect what we have. We spend all the time trying to protect what we have when it doesn't even make us that happy that we don't open our eyes to the possibility of what we could experience, what we could have. Okay? There's nothing wrong with watering the garden that you currently have if it serves you, if it's healthy for you, if it's good for you. That's so much of my podcast talks about being in the present, really nurturing what you have, and that's where your happiness will come from if it serves you. But like I said earlier, this podcast is not about that. This podcast episode is about what do we do when we know it's not right, but we still hold on so tight. When things aren't going the way we want it to go and we're holding on so tight. And, we check our partner's phones. We are paranoid that our friends are talking about us behind our back. We're thinking, that kind of shit, okay? Sometimes by holding on so tightly to something and being so fear-based about, I don't know if I can lose this, I've got to stay here, I've got to be so controlling of everything around me, we set ourselves up for an even bigger fail because A, we're not having a good time. It's not actually serving us. It's damaging to our relationship with ourselves. It's damaging to our confidence. That when that thing does break down, if and when it does break down, we realize, wait a minute, I never actually had full control over that thing. And there I was having like a really shocking time doing it, being there, holding on so tight. And I wasn't actually opening my eyes to everything else that there is out there for me. And I'm going to bring it back to, I've quoted this scene in a movie, but I'm going to quote it again because it is the best. It's probably my favorite quote out of any film ever in the world. And it's from a rom-com. And I think this is like in one of my first ever 20 episodes, I actually quoted this, and I'm going to quote it again because if you haven't watched this film, then watch it. But the movie is from like 1996. It's French Kiss with Meg Ryan. And basically what happens in the film, sorry if you've already heard me bang on about this, but I love it so much. What happens in the film is basically this woman, Meg Ryan, she is in like a comfortable job with a comfortable partner, everything's amazing, and she like lives like everything's very safe and secure, and she's a bit OCD, and she, can't get on flights, and she's a bit fearful and jumpy and scared, but she's got this perfect little life that she's built. And her fiance, goes to Paris. They live in Canada. He goes to Paris for a business trip, and then he calls her from there being like, I'm leaving you. I've met the love of my life. See ya. She then gets on a flight, even though she's so scared to get on a flight. And then everything starts to go wrong. She loses like her passport, her bags get stolen. She gets to France. She sees him with the fiance, with his new lover, who he proposes to like straight away. And so she's in this whole like crazy thing. She meets this guy who helps her basically on this whole journey. And then she finally gets to confront her fiance. And she says this quote in the film. The scene is in Cannes and she's sitting on the beach. It's just iconic in this like stripy blue and white t-shirt. It's just, watch the fucking film, guys. It's so good. But she says, and I've written it down because it's so good, and I'm just basing my entire step 6 of what Meg Ryan says in French Kiss. But she says, I was wandering the streets of Paris penniless without a hope in the world, and let me tell you, you can do a lot of soul searching at a time like that. And I realized that I've spent most of my adult life trying to protect myself from exactly that situation, and you just can't do it. There is no home safe enough. There is no country nice enough. There is no relationship secure enough. You're just setting yourself up for an even bigger fall and having an incredibly boring time in the process. And I'm like, fucking amen to that. I wish I had heard that halfway through my toxic relationship, and I would have I don't know. I hope I would have dumped the cunt. But anyway, basically what she's saying is that we are so loss aversive and we are so fixated on holding on to things that are not even that great sometimes, that don't even serve us, that we end up missing out on everything that life has to offer. Instead of thinking, I have to lock this down further, I have to really make it secure, or I can't leave this, instead of leaving this relationship, I'm going to lock it down even further, I'm going to, because I need to be secure. And then something does fall apart and we think our whole life has fallen apart. When you hold on and fixate less on things, when you hold on less on things, things unfold for you as you show up for them. I just want you to realize that when you do let go of that thing, many, 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 many doors open. We say to ourselves, if I let go of this relationship, that's a closed door. And then I've just shut a door and now I'm here with a fucking shut door. But that's not what happens. You walk out of that room and then you walk into a fucking corridor with 1,000 doors. That's what happens. Same as the job, same as when you move cities, same as everything, okay? You step away from something, you close that door, and only then do you see what's out there really available for the taking. When you're stuck where you are thinking, I need another relationship to roll around before I jump out of this one. I need another job or something to slap me in the face before I leave. I need another friendship group. That's not going to happen because you're stuck protecting yourself, trying to feel protected, trying to feel safe. That's what's happening. That's what Meg Ryan was saying in French Kiss. You're actually having an incredibly boring time because it's not serving you. You're not happy. It's not working for you, but you're not doing anything to be risky or be a risk taker or let go of it. And unfortunately, it requires taking risks in order to see everything that life has to offer. It requires you taking that leap of faith, refer to my first ever episode, for you to actually see, wow, here I was being so almost disrespecting myself, thinking that I'm not capable of trying something different or experiencing something new or succeeding in a different thing. All of you right now could quit the career you're doing, whether you love it or not, it doesn't matter. All of you right now could quit the career you're doing and find incredible success in a career you've never even thought of. That's how versatile we are as people. All of you right now could leave the relationship you're in and in a relatively short amount of time either find another different love of your life or find the most incredible life being happy with no relationship, right? All of you right now could find a brand new group of friends that are your people that you don't even know exist yet, that they could be at the next pottery class that you haven't yet gone to. They could be at that city that you keep saying you'd love to move to, but you make all these excuses as to why you haven't moved there yet. There is so fucking much on the other side, but one thing that you have to realize is until you let go, until you say, I'm willing to shake that dead flesh from my old life, step into the new skin, it's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, it's by chance. And it's a numbers game. You need to be increasing the opportunities that come your way by changing your behavior, by changing your action, by letting go of those things that aren't serving you. Now that you've identified what doesn't serve you, you've got to get clear on what you can do now with what you have. Stop holding on so tight to something that then sets yourself up for an even bigger fall. Because that's what happens when you are scared to let go of something. You are setting yourself up to fall hard. Instead of thinking, I can identify something's not right here. I've tried. It's not me, changing my language about this thing or being positive is not going to change it. I now know it's not working for me anymore. I've tried that. It's not fucking happening, okay? I know it. So now what am I going to do about it? How long am I actually going to wait and why? Why am I waiting? For what? For what? What are you fucking waiting for? If you're in an unhealthy relationship, an unhappy friendship group, what are you actually waiting for? And if you can't answer that question, today is the day that you need to start changing shit, okay? Because you are all sitting on so much fucking potential, but potential means nothing if it's not actioned, if it's not realized, if you don't open that door and go down that road, okay? The amount of people that write in that I look at their situation and I think, I know how you feel, I've been there. And it just takes a few difficult weeks or a few difficult months, but like the light at the end of the tunnel is so much brighter than what you're seeing right now. You have no fucking idea what's out there available for you, but you can't attain it from where you are now. You have to let go of that thing. And I know you know what that thing is. You're thinking of that thing right now, being like, yeah, fuck. I've got to fucking let go of it. And another thing is that we are so scared to let go of things and we feel bad to let go of things. Like we feel guilty to let go of things. But things and people let go of us all the fucking time, right? So you need to be a little bit more fucking ruthless or you're going to be left behind like a fucking used tissue. You need to realize this is life. I have to look out for myself, okay? And it's not to say everyone's out to get me and I'm only looking out for myself, but I have to prioritize myself in a lot of things and my inner circle and the people that mean the most to me, the people that serve me in my life and that I serve them. But I've got to look out for this because so often we stay in situations just because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings or because we don't want to do the quote unquote wrong thing or we feel guilty or we feel like but we fail to recognize all the times that people have, let go of us or rejected us or discarded us, not to remind you of this to be spiteful, but to remind you of this to be like a thing of thinking like, that's just life. That's part of life. Like, why should I feel bad quitting a job when I've been up to like the final 2 in so many job interviews and not gotten the job, or I've been let go of, or I've been fired, or, I've not been given the position that I wanted when I went for that promotion? Why do I feel bad, finding people that treat me right when people are technically letting go of me by treating me like shit? They're just happy to be in my presence, right? So it's just life. Happens to us. It's okay for us to also exercise that right to let go of something that's not working for us. The amount of people that have let go of me because I didn't work for them. What am I going to do here? Fester and be like, or realize, well, I didn't work for them. And that's fair. Now I'm going to do the same and get rid of things that don't work for me. Okay? And it starts by letting go. You're not going to get the new friendship group until you let go of the old because you're stuck in your old ways. You're stuck in your old thought patterns and you're stuck in thinking that you're not capable. You're not worthy. When you break out of that cycle, everything changes. And most importantly, your relationship with yourself changes. Your confidence changes. Your self-esteem changes. That is the biggest win when you let go of something. And then everything else is just a bonus. Everything that comes your way after that is a bonus. And there'll be many bonuses that come your way when you finally are able to rip that Band-Aid off and make the change. All right? I really hope that this has resonated with you guys. I got so passionate in this episode, but I just feel like I speak from so much experience personally with all these, letting go of things. I've had to let go of things that weren't working for me, and I've had to let go of things that had already let go of me. And I was just holding on to something that no longer was available for me anyway. So there's times that you're letting go of something that is within your control, and there's also times that you're letting go of things that is not within your control, and you've got to learn to do both. And when you do, things become attracted to you. Things come your way. It's like the horizon opens up. Anyway, I'm going to stop fucking talking smack. But love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Please rate and review the podcast. Please share this episode with anyone who you think might benefit from listening to it. And just a huge shout out to my global beans. I love how it's like literally spread across the world from you guys sharing it and through word of mouth. You're amazing. You're the best. And I will fucking talk to you in the next episode. Love you so much. As always, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to your brain. Don't take shit from anyone, and especially don't take shit from yourself. Danke.